يا أيها الذين آمنوا اصبروا وصابروا ورابطوا واتقوا الله لعلكم تفلحون.
الله ربنا هو الإله، له من الأسماء ما اصطفاه، الواحد الحي كذا المليك، والملك المالك لا شريك، والصمد السيد والمبين.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم انفعنا بما علمتنا وعلمنا ما ينفعنا وزدنا علما. اللهم إنا نسألك علما نافعا ورزقا طيبا وعملا متقبلا. All I seek refuge with Allah from shaitan, the accursed, in the name of Allah, the most merciful, the especially merciful. O Allah, help us to learn what is beneficial for us, help us to benefit from what you enabled us to learn, and increase us in knowledge. O Allah, indeed we ask you for knowledge that is of benefit, risk that is pure, and deeds that are accepted. Rabbi shrah li sadri wa yassir li amri wahlul 'uqdatam min lisani yafqahu qawli. Rabbana zidna ilma. Okay, assalamu alaikum everyone. So yesterday we covered Surah Al-Furqan and Surah Shu'ara. And who remembers what some of the criteria were that Allah SWT mentioned in Surah Al-Furqan, where He said that these are some characteristics that my special servants have. There were about 5 or 6 particular characteristics, and inshallah we will be checking ourselves for these qualities and characteristics and trying our best to emulate them in ourselves, inshallah. So of those qualities, the first was that these are believers who walk upon the earth humbly, not arrogantly. Secondly, they respond to the ignorant with peaceful words and not ill speech. Thirdly, these are people who spend their nights in prostration and worship. They perform qiyam in the night, and they don't, their nights are not spent in just fun and gossip or evil deeds. The fourth characteristic was that they make dua to be saved from the punishment of hell. Fifthly, they are moderate in their spending, following the middle path of neither being extremely stingy and niggardly nor being wasteful. And then finally, they do not commit shirk, kill unjustly, or commit adultery. These are all qualities that inshallah we will try our best to have and bring within ourselves. Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. So today we're starting with Surah An-Naml. And this surah was revealed in the middle Meccan period, just like the previous surah, Surah Shu'ara that we covered, and this surah, and then Surah Al-Qasas, which we will do after Surah An-Naml. These 3 surahs were all revealed, one after the other. And the first part of this surah, the first 60 ayahs or so, show us that only certain people can benefit from the guidance of the Quran and become worthy of the good promises in it that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has made. And who are these people? Who are the people that can truly benefit from the Quran? And we've seen this multiple times over again as we are reading that those who actually accept the basic realities of the universe that the Quran is presenting, that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is showing us. And then they actually follow up that belief with practical submission and obedience in their lives. Right? Those are the people who can truly benefit from the Quran. But we're also shown that the biggest obstacle to this, to someone really having that belief and to being able to benefit from the Quran, the biggest obstacle is that a person who denies the hereafter. Right? Denying of the hereafter, as we've discussed before, it makes a person irresponsible and selfish and just, attuned to the worldly life only. And then they're not ready to accept any moral restrictions on themselves. And so in this regard, in this surah, as we will see, as we're going to start, inshallah, 3 kinds of characters are presented to us. The first type of character is the one shown by Fir'aun, the chiefs of Thamud, the rebels of Prophet Lut's people. All of these people, they were completely careless and heedless of the hereafter and the fact that we have accountability. And so they were slaves of the world. Right? Even after seeing miracles that they were shown, they didn't believe, and they turned against those who were inviting them to good. Right? So that's the first kind of character that we see. The second type of character that we're shown is like that of the Prophet Sulaiman alayhi salam, Prophet Dawood alayhi salam. They've been blessed by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with wealth and kingdom and power and grandeur that the chiefs of Makkah, who at the time that this surah was being revealed, and who are being the mushrikeen that are being addressed, they couldn't even have imagined that kind of wealth, that level of wealth that these prophets Sulaiman and Dawood had, and they were kings. But because Prophet Sulaiman alayhi salam, he knew that he is answerable to God, to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he had that realization in him that whatever he has, it's only because of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's blessing and bounty on him. And so his attitude, his attitude was an attitude of obedience to Allah, and there wasn't any vanity in his character. We constantly will see that he had humbleness in his character. And then a third and final type of character that we'll see in these coming ayat is of the Queen of Sheba, the Queen of Saba, and she ruled over a really wealthy nation, and that could make a person vain and conceited. Her people were worshippers of the sun. They committed shirk, and so she was, not only was that a way of life that she had been brought up with, but she kind of had to keep that way of life in order to rule her people. But we see that when she sees the evidence of the truth in front of her, she gives up shirk. She adopts the way of Tawheed, and her conscience helps her to realize the truth and the fact that she is accountable before Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Okay, so let's start. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. طاسين تلك آيات القرآن وكتاب مبين هدى وبشرى للمؤمنين الذين يقيمون الصلاة ويؤتون الزكاة وهم بالآخرة هم يوقنون. Oh, yes, so let's start with Surah Naml. Did you hear the introduction to Surah Naml? I didn't realize my mic was muted. Oops, sorry. Sorry, just a moment. Okay. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Tasin. These are the verses of the Quran, the clear book. It is a guide and good news for the believers, those who establish prayer, pay the alms tax, and have sure faith in the hereafter. As for those who do not believe in the hereafter, we have certainly made their evil deeds appealing to them, so they wander blindly. Any of these people are, they will be losers because they never prepared for the hereafter. It is they who will suffer a dreadful torment, and in the hereafter they will truly be the greatest losers. Right? They'll be losers because they didn't prepare for the hereafter, they didn't live their lives according to that knowledge. And indeed you, O Prophet, are receiving the Quran from the one who is all-wise, all-knowing. Yani this is, Allah SWT is impressing upon us this fact that these are not the words of and opinions and ideas of just any human, right? These are the words of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So we should, seriously understand the status and the importance of this book. These are words revealed by the one who is completely perfect in wisdom and knowledge, and he has full knowledge of all of the affairs of his creation. He has full knowledge of yours and mine, our past, our present, and our future. That's whose words we are reading here. Remember when Musa said to his family, I have spotted a fire. I will either bring you some directions from there or a burning torch so you may warm yourselves. But when he came to it, he was called by Allah. Blessed is the one at the fire and whoever is around it. Glory be to Allah, the Lord of all the worlds. Subhanallahi Rabbil Alameen. These are very good words of dhikr for us to make as well. Subhanallahi Rabbil Alameen. O Musa, it is truly I am Allah, the Almighty, All-Wise. Now throw down your staff. But when he saw it slithering like a snake, he ran away without looking back. Allah reassured him, O Musa, do not be afraid. Messengers should have no fear in my presence. Fear is only for those who do wrong. But if they later mend their evil ways with good, then I am certainly all-forgiving, most merciful. SubhanAllah, this is a very, very encouraging and wonderful thing for us to know as well, that if we have done some wrong, then we can repent and reform ourselves and do good deeds, and inshallah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He is assuring us here that He is Ghafurur Rahim, right? He's all-forgiving, especially merciful. How blessed we are. Ayah 12. Now put your hand through the opening of your collar. It will come out shining, white, and unblemished. These are 2 of 9 signs for Pharaoh and his people. They have truly been a rebellious people. But when our enlightening signs came to them, they said, this is pure magic. So, in their hearts, they did actually know, they had that knowledge that this is not magic, but they still rejected. And although their hearts were convinced the signs were true, they still denied them wrongfully and arrogantly. See then what was the end of the corruptors. وَلَقَدْ آتَيْنَا دَاوُودَ وَسُلَيْمَانَ عِلْمًا وَقَالَ الْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ الَّذِي فَضَّلْنَا عَلَى كَثِيرٍ مِّنْ عِبَادِهِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. Indeed, we granted knowledge to David and Sulaiman, to Dawood and Sulaiman. And they said in acknowledgement, all praise is for Allah who has privileged us over many of His faithful servants. And we see here that of all the blessings that they had been given, the blessing that Allah SWT is mentioning first is the blessing of knowledge. And so the importance and the virtue of knowledge is greater than other blessings that we've been given. Right? Prophet Dawood and Sulaiman alayhi salam, they had many other blessings. They were kings, they had wealth, they had power, they were given the ability to do various miracles by Allah subhanahu permission, and they had, talents and strengths that they were given, that we learned of. But knowledge is mentioned first. And there's a hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, wherein he says that unquestionably, indeed, the world is cursed. What is in it is cursed, except for the dhikr of Allah, any the remembrance of Allah, and what helps you in that, any the things that help you in worshipping Him, and the knowledgeable person and the person who is learning. Meaning that basically everything else in the world, it comes with some sort of problems or discomfort, and whatever benefit it has doesn't last for very long. But knowledge, knowledge is blessed. And then we also know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala told Rasulullah to make this dua for knowledge. So Prophet Dawood and Sulaiman alayhi salam, they were given ilm. And real ilm. Real ilm means that a person remains humble to Allah. And we can see here a comparison between Fir'aun and Prophet Dawood and Sulaiman alayhi salam, right? Fir'aun was involved in ignorance, whereas these prophets had that real knowledge. They had the knowledge of reality, and they had the knowledge of reality that whatever they have isn't actually theirs. It's a gift from Allah. Whatever rights they've been granted, they should be used strictly and according to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's will. Right? That He gave these things to us, so we will use them the way He is pleased with. And they knew that they'll be held answerable before Allah. He's the real owner, and determining what the right or wrong use of these powers, these rights that we have, is from Him. Right? And in contrast, Fir'aun was in absolute ignorance. And we can see the difference that this made in their characters and how they behaved. Right? Otherwise, both Fir'aun and Prophets Dawood and Sulaiman alayhi salam, they had wealth, they had power, they had might in the land, they were kings. But this difference, just in ignorance and true knowledge and ilm, it made a huge difference in their personalities. So, again, reminder that real ilm makes a person humble, and they praise and worship Allah, not become arrogant. And Dawood was succeeded by Sulaiman, who said, "O people, we have been taught the language of birds and been given everything we need. This is indeed a great privilege." So he's reminding his people of Allah's great favor on them. Sulaiman's forces of jinns, humans, and birds were rallied for him, perfectly organized. So, we see that his army was well disciplined and organized. And when they came across a valley of ants, and an ant warned, "O ants, go quickly into your homes, so Sulaiman and his armies do not crush you unknowingly." So Sulaiman smiled in amusement at her words and prayed, "My Lord, inspire me to always be thankful for your favors, which you have blessed me and my parents with, and to do good deeds that please you. Admit me by your mercy into the company of your righteous servants." So we see that the ant warned the other ants that Sulaiman alayhi salam and his army are coming and they may unknowingly trample you. And Sulaiman alayhi salam, he smiled. He was able to hear and understand the ant, which is another miracle granted to him. And he made this beautiful dua. Right? What is the dua that he made? "Rabbi awzi'ni an ashkur ni'mataka allati an'amta alayya wa ala walidayya wa an a'mala salihan tardahu wa adkhilni bi rahmatika fi ibadika as-salihin." Right? That we should also make this dua. That help me to not become arrogant. Right? It's easy to become arrogant when we've been given wonderful talents and abilities, as he had been. But Allah, help me to remain humble and grateful to you, and help me to do good works that please you. This is something that we should always pray for and concern ourselves with, that am I doing actions that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pleased with? And this is also, the truth that none of our deeds alone will not admit us into Jannah. It's only through Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy that we will be admitted into Jannah and amongst His righteous servants. And Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam even admitted that for himself. Ayah 20. One day he inspected the birds and wondered, why is it that I cannot see the hoopoe? Or could he be absent? I will surely subject him to a severe punishment or even slaughter him, unless he brings me a compelling excuse. So, Prophet Sulaiman was a great king, but he was also very vigilant and observant, and he was firm about the rules. It was not long before the bird came and said, I have found out something you do not know. I have just come to you from Sheba with sure news. And, something that you do not know does not mean, of course, that he doesn't know about that land or those people, because that land was already well known at that time. Indeed, I found a woman ruling over them who has been given everything she needs and who has a magnificent throne. I found her and her people prostrating to the sun instead of Allah. And most likely the bird's words end here, that they're prostrating to the sun instead of Allah, and these words for Shaitan has made their deeds appealing to them, hindering them from the right way and leaving them unguided. These are most likely Allah's addition. So they do not prostrate to Allah, who brings forth what is hidden in the heavens and the earth, and knows what you all conceal and what you reveal. Then we come to Ayah 26, which is an ayah of sajda. He is Allah. Allahu la ilaha illa huwa rabbul arshil azim. He is Allah, there is no God worthy of worship except Him, the Lord of the mighty throne. Suleiman said, we will see whether you're telling the truth or lying. So he said, we'll investigate this matter. Go with this letter of mine and deliver it to them. Then stand aside and see how they will respond. The queen later announced, O chiefs, indeed a noble letter has been delivered to me. It is from Suleiman, and it reads, in the name of Allah, the most compassionate, most merciful. Do not be arrogant with me, but come to me fully submitting to Allah. So remember, Prophet Sulaiman, he is a prophet of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and he's fulfilling his mission, which is inviting people to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And he's been given a position of strength and power by Allah, so he's using that position as part of his work. And when he says, come to me fully submitting to Allah, or, he says, Utuni Muslimin, fully submitting, this can mean two things. Either present yourselves in submission, or present yourself as Muslims after embracing Islam. So as a ruler, that would make sense for him to say, present yourselves in submission to me. And then as a prophet, it makes sense for him to say, come as Muslims. And probably both meanings were meant through his letter. So what is her response? She said, O chiefs, advise me in this matter of mine, for I would never make any decision without you. So, we see that she is a queen who is wise, and that she takes the counsel and, she solicits the advice of her counselors and advisors. And this is a good leadership quality that, whoever is in a leadership position should try to connect with people's hearts in this way by including them and, taking their counsel. And we know that it's also a sunnah to, have this this practice of shura, even in our own homes and families, and also in our organizations. So this queen, we see she's not hasty, she's deliberate, she's, planning and thinking out what their response should be. They responded, we are a people of strength and great military might, but the decision is yours, so decide what you will command. She reasoned, indeed, when kings invade a land, they ruin it and debase its nobles. They really do so. So, in this very brief sentence, she gives an accurate assessment of imperialism and how and why kings invade other countries, why rulers and leaders invade other countries, right? To exploit the other's resources, to gain control, and often they end up humiliating and subjugating the people of the land that they invade. So, she says she's kind of reasoning that it would be better to come to some kind of agreement and avoid conflict so that this doesn't happen. But I will certainly send him a gift and see what response my envoys return with. So, in a way, she's sending gifts almost as a test. And Ibn Abbas radiallahu anhu said that she said to her people, if he accepts the gift, yani if Sulaiman alayhi salam accepts the gift, then he's an average king and you can easily fight him. But if he doesn't accept it, then he's really a prophet, as he says, and we should listen to him. So what was Sulaiman alayhi salam's response? When the chief envoy came to him, Sulaiman said, do you offer me wealth? What Allah has granted me is far greater than what He has granted you. No, it is you who rejoice in receiving gifts. Right? He's saying that I'm not in need of these gifts and this wealth. I already have a lot from Allah. Go back to them, for we will certainly mobilize against them forces which they can never resist, and we will drive them out from there in disgrace, fully humbled. Sulaiman asked, O chiefs, which of you can bring me her throne before they come to me in full submission? One mighty jinn responded, I can bring it to you before you rise from this council of yours, and I am quite strong and trustworthy for this task. But the one who had knowledge of the scripture said, I can bring it to you in the blink of an eye. Meaning, even before, like just in a moment, I can bring it to you. So when Sulaiman saw it placed before him, he exclaimed, this is by the grace of my Lord to test me whether I am grateful or ungrateful. And whoever is grateful is only for their own good, but whoever is ungrateful, surely my Lord is self-sufficient, most generous. And we see that between these two, beings, the jinn had great strength, but this person had knowledge. And we see that knowledge and ilm is better than physical power. And Sulaiman alayhi salam mentions the blessings of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and we should also mention the blessings that He has given us and acknowledge the blessings, right? He saw this amazing thing happen, that the throne was brought to him in the blink of an eye. And he recognizes that, being given these blessings, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is testing our gratitude and our level of shukr. Then Sulaiman said, disguise her throne for her so we may see whether she will recognize it or she will not be able to. So now Sulaiman Islam is going to show her the miracle by bringing her own throne before her. So when she arrived, it was said to her, is your throne like this? She replied, it looks to be the same, meaning something very similar. We have already received knowledge of Sulaiman's prophethood before this miracle and have submitted to Allah. But she had been hindered by what she used to worship instead of Allah, for she was indeed from a disbelieving people. Yani because she had been brought up in that environment of shirk, that's what had been stopping her before from recognizing the truth of Allah's oneness. But now she recognizes it and she's submitting. Then she was told, enter the palace, but when she saw the hall, she thought it was a body of water. So she bared her legs, meaning she thought that the floor had water, and yet it was actually just very, very shiny glass. So Sulaiman said, it is just a palace paved with crystal. At last she declared, my Lord, I have certainly wronged my soul. Now I fully submit myself along with Sulaiman to Allah, the Lord of all the worlds. So, she recognized Sulaiman alayhi salam's superiority, and she also recognized the superiority and the oneness and greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So she, fully came into belief, true belief in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And, throughout this, we also see how the prophets of Allah, they used whatever they had to help others, to recognize the greatness of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right? So Sulaiman alayhi salam, he had all this might and power. He could have used it to, amass more for himself or just, build up his own glory and grandeur, but he instead used it to help bring others to Islam and to realizing and worshipping Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as he should be. And we certainly sent to the people of Thamud their brother Saleh, proclaiming, "Worship Allah." But they suddenly split into two opposing groups. He urged the disbelieving group, "O my people, why do you seek to hasten the torment rather than grace? If only you sought Allah's forgiveness so you may be shown mercy." They replied, "You and your followers are a bad omen for us." He responded, "Your omens are destined by Allah. In fact, you are only a people being tested." And there were in the city 9 elite men who spread corruption in the land, never doing what is right. They vowed, "Let us swear by Allah that we will take him and his family down by night." They will certainly say to his closest heirs, "We did not witness the murder of his family. We are definitely telling the truth." So we see, here there was a plot being made by certain of the wrongdoers of that community to kill Salih alayhi salam and his family. And the mushrikeen of Mecca, we know from the seerah that they had also made such a plot against Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam to kill him secretly in the night as a group. And we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saved him from that. And so they made a plan. But we too made a plan while they were unaware. See then what the consequences of their plan were. We utterly destroyed them and their people altogether. So their homes are there, but completely ruined because of their wrongdoing. Surely in this is a lesson for people of knowledge. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is, particularly pointing out this, that there's a lesson that we have to take from this. فَتِلْكَ بُيُوتِهِمْ خَاوِيَةً بِمَا ظَلَمُوا. Right? That, because of their dhulm, their homes are ruined. And Ibn Abbas, radiallahu anhu, there's a saying is that I find in Allah's book that injustice destroys homes. And he recited this ayah. So we can see that injustice and oppression of any kind, we know it's unlawful, and it destroys families and homes. And then on a larger scale, we also know that many times Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He annihilates an otherwise flourishing nation due to its wickedness and its ignorance. As some people say that, this destruction, this earthquake, this flood, this whatever the disaster is, it's just happening because there's this it's a physical phenomenon that's happening. And they completely deny that there's any link between that destruction and that community's moral position, right? But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's will is what decides these so-called physical causes, right? And we understanding the reality, we should see that these sort of acts of destruction, they're warnings for ourselves. They're warnings for us to take heed, to leave the things that bring Allah's anger, and to go towards those things that bring His mercy. And we delivered those who were faithful and were mindful of Allah. Right? Those who had Iman and who had taqwa of Allah, they were delivered, they were kept safe. Ayah 54. And remember Lut when he rebuked the men of his people. Do you commit that shameful deed while you can see one another? Do you really lust after men instead of women? In fact, you are only a people acting ignorantly. But his people's only response was to say, expel Lut's followers from your land. They are a people who wish to remain chaste. And we saw this yesterday as well, that they don't want to hear anyone telling them to stop a wicked thing and to live in the right way. So we delivered him and his family except his wife. We had destined her to be one of the doomed. And we poured upon them a rain of brimstone. How evil was the rain of those who had been warned. Say, O Prophet, praise be to Allah and peace be upon the servants He has chosen. قُلِ الْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ وَسَلَامٌ عَلَى عِبَادِهِ الَّذِينَ أَصْطَفَى اللَّهُ خَيْرٌ أَمَّا يُشْرِكُونَ. Ask the disbelievers which is better, Allah or whatever gods they associate with Him. So the beginning of this ayah, this is something that we should also say at the start of any speech or at the start of a khutbah. And we should say this regularly anyways. We should seek Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's blessings and remember this fact that it's Allah's great mercy, right? Praise be to Him. It is His great mercy that He sent messengers to guide us. And then we also ask for the peace and blessings to be upon His chosen servants, those people who went through so much hardship to convey Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's message to the world. Just one moment, please. Okay. So now from verse 60 onwards, we now begin the second main part of this surah. So, first of all, we'll see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala draws attention to some very glaring, visible, obvious realities of the universe, and He asks the mushrikeen one question after another. That, do these realities that you can obviously see, do these testify to the shirk that you practice or to the tawheed which the Quran invites you to? And then He points out, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala shows us that the real problem that makes them blind and insensitive to all the obvious things that are mentioned is that their denial of the hereafter, right? So when they're denying the hereafter, nothing is serious for them. If everything is just going to turn to dust anyway, then the struggle of life is pointless. Truth and falsehood, right and wrong, it's all meaningless, right? But to arouse them from this slumber, to shake them up from this, heedlessness, these verses that we will read now, they are sent to convey to them a sense of the hereafter, to wake them up, to warn them of its consequences. And the way an eyewitness convinces others of what he has seen or what she has seen, how we would convince someone of what they haven't seen. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives these scenes of the hereafter to convince them of that. Ayah 60. Or ask them, who created the heavens and the earth, and sends down rain for you from the sky, by which we cause delightful gardens to grow? You could never cause their trees to grow. Was it another God besides Allah? Absolutely not. But they are a people who set up equals to Allah. Or ask them, who made the earth a place of settlement, caused rivers to flow through it, placed firm mountains upon it, and set a barrier between fresh and salt bodies of water? Was it another God besides Allah? Absolutely not. But most of them do not know. So, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is pointing this out, that when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the one that created each and everything, then how can there be any other ilah, right? Any other being that deserves to be worshipped? Only He is worthy of worship, and all of the prophets of Allah throughout humankind's history invited to this main message. And, we should remember that this is the first message that people deserve to be told. This is the first thing that we should call people to, is, to acknowledge Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the creator and the only one worthy of worship. And notice here that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, who made the earth a place of settlement, like it's like a place of rest. And, if knowing what we do about the earth, and whatever we have found out about it so far, there's so much that goes on around the earth and on the earth, and yet we're able to live here comfortably, right? We know about the earth's spinning and rotation, and it orbits the sun, and then even on earth there are daily small earthquakes that are they're imperceptible, but they're there. And then there's various things in the atmosphere that happen that we're protected from. Despite all of these things, we are still able to live here peacefully. Okay. Ayah 62. Or ask them, who responds to the distressed when they cry to Him, relieving their affliction? And who makes you successors in the earth? Is it another God besides Allah? Yet you are hardly mindful. So, the distress when they cry to Him. Every single person at some time in their life, we all experience such a situation when all worldly help is useless and we call upon Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala with absolute desperation. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala responds. Even the mushrikeen, even those who were absolutely, denying Allah, they will have experienced those times where they knew that at this point, this particular trouble or calamity that is upon us, we cannot call upon anyone else but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And they knew that, and they have that in their own experience. So we need to remember to call upon Him alone. Ayah 63, or ask them who guides you in the darkness of the land and sea and sends the winds, ushering in His mercy. Is it another God besides Allah? Exalted is Allah above what they associate with Him. Or ask them who originates the creation, then resurrects it, and gives you provisions from the heavens and the earth. Is it another God besides Allah? Say, O Prophet, show me your proof if what you say is true. Say, O Prophet, none in the heavens and the earth has knowledge of the unseen except Allah, nor do they know when they will be resurrected. No, their knowledge of the hereafter amounts to ignorance. In fact, they are in doubt about it. In truth, they are totally blind to it. And blind to it means that they don't prepare for it, right? And we ourselves, we should think about this, that we shouldn't be concerned just with, what day or year or century the Day of Judgment will come, right? Sometimes we get very caught up in, what signs have already appeared and so on. But the fact is, the truth is that it will certainly come. And once a Sahabi asked the Prophet ﷺ about when the Day of Judgment would be, and what was his response? Rasulullah ﷺ, he said, what have you prepared for it? That was his response to when someone asked, when will the Day of Judgment come? Right, so this should also be our main concern, that what have you and I prepared for the Day of Judgment? And really, the Day of Judgment is just as close as our own death, which could be at any moment as well. The disbelievers ask, when we and our fathers are reduced to dust, will we really be brought forth alive? We have already promised this, as well as our forefathers. We have already been promised this, as well as our forefathers earlier. This is nothing but ancient fables. Ayah 69. Say, O Prophet, travel throughout the land and see the fate of the wicked. Do not grieve for them, nor be distressed by their schemes. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala here, He's consoling Rasulullah to not be sad for them. And this is important for ourselves as well, that we shouldn't let sadness and grief be something that we dwell on. Otherwise, we won't be able to do our work or anything really, right? We don't want to just become so immobilized by feelings of distress or sadness or grief that we can't move on. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created emotions in us. We feel emotions in a certain way, and our body will also exhibit that emotion in a certain way, right? We have like particular physical ways that our body is showing that emotion. But these two things we don't have much control over. What do we have control over when it comes to our emotions is how we express the emotion, how we respond to it. What we say and do when we're feeling that emotion. So whether it's anger, whether it's sadness, whether it's fear or joy and happiness, whatever it is, we have control over what we say and do at that time. And that's what we should focus on. So one advice is that in order to not be distressed or sad and not to give in to grief, there are two things that we can do. First of all, try to change the way we interpret the situation that we're in, right? Give it a positive spin. Try to improve the perspective that you're looking at it with. Find the good in it. Remember, inna ma'al usri yusra, right? So try to find the good in whatever that situation is. And then secondly, instead of pretending that you're not sad or upset, right? Don't try to deny the emotion itself, but focus on the expression. So you're obviously you're gonna have to do some action or say something. So make that action like doing dua, making dhikr, and being careful in general about what we say and do. Inshallah, this will help us. Okay. They asked the believers, when will this threat come to pass if what you say is true? So we also see this again and again with many of the communities that they foolishly ask their messenger, oh really? If this is true, when is this going to happen? Or bring it, right? And that is so foolish. Say, O Prophet, perhaps some of what you seek to hasten is close at hand. Surely your Lord is ever bountiful to humanity, but most of them are ungrateful. أَكْثَرُهُمْ لَا يَشْكُرُونَ. And may Allah SWT save us from being ungrateful. May He help us to be His truly grateful and humble servants. Ameen. And surely your Lord knows what their hearts conceal and what they reveal. Right? Allah SWT knows each and every single thing. For there's nothing hidden in the heavens or the earth without being written in a perfect record. Fil kitab mubin. And imagine how we'll feel when we are actually given that record in our hands. Indeed, this Quran clarifies for the children of Israel most of what they differ over. And it is truly a guide and a mercy for the believers. Your Lord will certainly judge between them by His justice, for He is the Almighty, the All-Knowing. Huwa al-Aziz al-Alim. So put your trust in Allah, for you are surely upon the path of clear truth. So, fatawakkal ala Allah, that we have to have tawakkul and trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Trust and rely on Him completely. You certainly cannot make the dead hear the truth, nor can you make the deaf hear the call when they turn their backs and walk away, nor can you lead the blind out of their misguidance. You can make none hear the truth except those who believe in our revelations, fully submitting to Allah. So, here Allah SWT, He's giving consolation, we see, that He's consoling Rasulullah ﷺ, that yes, you are upon the truth, you are properly doing your mission. The problem is in these people themselves. And only those who surrender to Allah will really benefit. Right? Only those who truly submit, fully submit to Allah will benefit from the guidance of the Quran. Whereas, as yesterday we read that who are those other people? What is something that other than Allah that people submit themselves to, which is even worse than any of the idols that people do commit shirk through? The worst thing is those who follow their own desires and whims, who make their own wants and desires and lusts their God, so to speak. Ayah 82, and when the decree of the hour comes to pass against them, we will bring forth for them a beast from the earth, telling them that the people had no sure faith in our revelations. So there's a hadith that the sun will rise from the west, and one day this beast will come out of the earth, talk to people, and tell them to believe. Right? This is a sign from among the signs of the Day of Judgment, and this will happen when there's no person left to enjoin good and forbid evil. And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, he mentioned this sign along with some other ones, like the smoke and the rising of the sun from the west and the coming of Dajjal. And details regarding this beast, its nature, its appearance, exactly where it will come, all of these details are not really relevant for the purpose that Allah SWT has mentioned it here. It's mentioned as a sign of the coming of the hour, and it is, subhanAllah, that when there's no person left to say this, these good things and to remind people, then Allah SWT will send a creature, like an animal, to do that. Watch for the day we will gather from every faith community a group of those who denied our revelations, and they will be driven in ranks. When they finally come before their Lord, He will ask them, "Did you deny my revelations without even comprehending them? Or what exactly did you do?" So again, we see denial and criticism of the Quran, right? This is being addressed here. And, some people will, some objectors and critics will say that the Quran is not factual or it's not scientifically accurate. And, these kinds of objections are based on ignorance and lack of evidence. The Quran is not supposed to be a book of science. It's supposed to be a book of science from the perspective of how we view things. And it's relevant for all people in all times. And also we have to remember that, whatever human science, whatever our research and knowledge has found out so far, is limited and it's continually changing. So there will be people who deny the revelations without even properly understanding. And the decree of torment will be justified against them for their wrongdoing, leaving them speechless. Do they not see that we have made the night for them to rest in and the day bright? Surely in this are signs for those who believe. إِنَّ فِي ذَلِكَ لَآيَاتٍ لِقَوْمٍ يُؤْمِنُونَ. We are constantly pointed out signs for ourselves, for pondering and reflecting on. And beware of the day the trumpet will be blown, and all those in the heavens and all those on the earth will be horrified to the point of death, except those Allah wills to spare, and all will come before Him fully humbled. So again, Allah SWT is warning us to be aware of that day of gathering, the day of resurrection. And everyone will be horrified except those Allah wills to spare. And we've seen in other places in the Quran, other things that we've read as well, that on the Day of Judgment, Allah SWT will make that time easier for His true believing righteous servants. May Allah SWT make us amongst them. Ayah 88. Now you see the mountains thinking they're firmly fixed, but they are traveling just like clouds. That is the design of Allah, who has perfected everything. Surely He is all aware of what you do. And this may refer to the fact that on the Day of Judgment, or just before it, the mountains will be moving about just like as if they were puffs of clouds. Whoever comes with a good deed will be rewarded with what is better, and they will be secure from the horror on that day. مَنْ جَاءَ بِالْحَسَنَةِ فَلَهُ خَيْرٌ مِّنْهَا وَهُمْ مِنْ فَرَعٍ يَوْمَئِذٍ آمِنُونَ. This is something that is so beautiful, that whoever comes with a good deed will be rewarded with what is better. Yani the reward that we receive, inshallah, will be even better than the good we've done, and it will be more than what we actually deserve. This is Allah SWT's great blessing and mercy and bounty on us, that our deeds, whatever deeds that we may do, they may be deficient, they may be little, they may be temporary, but His reward is perfect. His reward is abundant. His reward is eternal. And He is most generous. For our small deeds that seem small to us, our words, our dhikr, remember that, like we mentioned yesterday, that, reciting just 10 verses in the night brings a qintar, like a huge amount of reward. Even something as small as removing an obstacle from the road or from the path is rewarded. This is Allah SWT's great mercy on us, that we will be rewarded with even more. And they will be secure from the horror on that day. And whoever comes with an evil deed will be hurled face first into the fire. Are you rewarded except for what you used to do? So note that many places in the Quran it's mentioned that evil will only be punished in the hereafter to the extent of the evil committed, not more than that. But a good act will be rewarded much more generously by Allah than what the doer actually deserves. Ayah 91. Say, O Prophet, I have only been commanded to worship the Lord of this city of Makkah, who has made it sacred, and to Him belongs everything. And I am commanded to be one of those who fully submit to Him, and to recite the Quran. Then whoever chooses to be guided, it's only for their own good. But whoever chooses to stray, say, O Prophet, I am only a warner. So this is a reminder to us. And Rasulullah ﷺ, he also continually invited people using the Quran from the beginning to the end of his prophethood and his mission. And we should also keep reciting the Quran to invite people to Allah. Even if people are turning away from it, but keep reciting the Quran and using it to help people see and realize the truth. And also for ourselves, that when we recite over and over again, we increase in our understanding, right? You may all have felt it, that when sometimes we read a verse again, we've read it before, but we read it again, we understand it better or differently because of either the situation we're in at that time or something that we recently experienced. And it makes a difference in how we understand that verse, and so it helps us. And the Quran is not something, of course, we know that we only read it once or twice and then we say, okay, I've done this, and now I'll move on to something else. No, inshallah, like we always keep the Quran with us and move forward with it. And say, all praise is for Allah. وَقُلِ الْحَمْدُ لِلَّهِ. He will show you His signs, and you will recognize them, and your Lord is never unaware of what you do. Sadaqallahu al-Azim. This is the end of Surah An-Naml. Yeah, and we are coming now to Surah Al-Qasas, which is, we will see, and this was also its revelation was also at the same time period, the middle Meccan period, as Surah Shura and Surah An-Naml, which we just did. Sorry, did I say we're doing Surah An-Naml? We're doing Surah Al-Qasas. And it mentions the story of Prophet Musa alayhi salam in detail, which before we only saw parts of his story in the previous two surahs. And so, the first half of this surah deals with and shows us Prophet Musa alayhi salam's story. And a perfect analogy is established between the conditions at the time of Musa alayhi salam and the conditions at the time that this surah was revealed. How the mushrikeen were raising these flimsy objections and excuses for not believing in the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And we will I'll just ask Edmund to play the ad for ICNA Relief, inshallah. Okay, so continuing on with Surah Al-Qasas, 4 main points are, impressed upon us through this analogy of Prophet Musa alayhi salam's story, and as compared to the conditions at the time with Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam and the mushrikeen. First of all, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He shows us that He provides the means and the motives of whatever He wills to do, the ways that He does what He has planned in imperceptible ways, right? That we cannot necessarily realize or imagine at the time. So in Prophet Musa alayhi salam's case, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala arranged that the child through whom Fir'aun was to be removed in power was actually brought up in his own home. And there was no way that he could know that this child that I am fostering is actually going to be the one to remove me, right? So we see that no one can know or go against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's plan and frustrate His plan. Secondly, through this we are shown that prophethood, and we've mentioned this before as well, prophethood is not something that is bestowed with great proclamations and a grand sort of announcement being made, right? The mushrikeen of Makkah, they were saying, oh, how can this man be a prophet? How come he's become a prophet unexpectedly all of a sudden? But with Musa alayhi salam, we also see that he was unexpectedly, while on a journey, given this blessing of prophethood. Right? So this is not something that is done with great fanfare. Thirdly, the person who Allah wants to take some service with, that person will come out without any army or great sort of resources at their back, apparently, and they're able to defeat an opponent that is much stronger and better equipped. Right? If you compare Prophet Musa alayhi salam and what he had, apparently on the face of it, what did he have compared to Fir'aun and all his might and grandeur? It seems like it was a very unequal sort of comparison. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, wherever He wills, He causes the one to come out victorious, even when they do not have great support and resources seemingly. And fourthly, the people, the mushrikeen of Makkah, just like the disbelievers of former times that we've seen again and again, they would demand that why hasn't Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam been given the same kind of miracles which were given to Musa, right? And other people of other prophets would demand, show us a sign, show us a sign. And so Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is reminding that those people who were shown those miracles before, they didn't believe even after seeing the miracles, right? They just brushed it off as, oh, this is magic or whatever, and they were sticking to their hostility and stubbornness against the truth, right? And you have this problem too, that you have miracles in front of you, but you're ignoring them. And then also we know that it is the law of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that when a people are shown miracles, they're shown very clearly the truth, and then they still don't believe, then it's time for their destruction and doom. So they shouldn't be demanding to be shown miracles again and again, because then they're inviting doom on themselves. Okay, so let's start Surah Al-Qasas. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم طاسيم تلك آيات الكتاب المبين نتلو عليك من نبأ موسى وفرعون بالحق لقوم يؤمنون. Ta, Sin, Mim. These are the verses of the clear book. We narrate to you, O Prophet, part of the story of Musa and Fir'aun in truth for people who believe. Indeed, Fir'aun arrogantly elevated himself in the land and divided its people into subservient groups, one of which he persecuted, slaughtering their sons and keeping their women. He was truly one of the corruptors. So we learn that Fir'aun divided the people of his land into groups, and that's how he ruled them, by political divisions. And they were, on the one hand, there were people who were his supporters, and they were given all kinds of privileges and preferential rights and made the ruling class, right, the elite. And then on the other half of the population who were subjugated and oppressed and exploited. And that was the Bani Israel. But it was our will to favor those who were oppressed in the land, making them models of faith as well as successors. Yani it was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's will to save the Bani Israel and elevate them, and to establish them in the land, and through them show Fir'aun, Haman, and their soldiers the fulfillment of what they feared. And what did they fear? Losing their power, which did indeed happen. Now, Prophet Musa's story starts, and we'll see several women mentioned throughout it. And it starts with the mention of his mother. We inspired the mother of Musa. Nurse him, but when you fear for him, put him then into the river, and do not fear or grieve. We will certainly return him to you and make him one of the messengers. So, we see that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He also sends inspiration to the hearts of His righteous servants, and not only to prophets. And by this command of to nurse him, to feed him, she's getting him used to her milk, and as well as the obvious act of attending to the baby's hunger. And we know that mother's milk is best for baby. This was Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is consoling her as well and letting her know that everything will be all right and that he is going to be one of the messengers. So a great news given to her. And it so happened that Pharaoh's people picked him up only to become their enemy and source of grief. Surely Pharaoh, Haman, and their soldiers were sinful. So, here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is inspiring her and telling her that putting the baby into the river will actually keep him safe. Whereas normally we would think quite the opposite, right? That the baby would be the safest being kept with us. But no, he will be safe being cast into the river. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saved Musa alayhi salam using his enemy, Pharaoh. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can use anyone to, work forward his plan, even if it's a sinful person. Pharaoh's wife said to him, "This baby is a source of joy for me and you. Do not kill him. Perhaps he may be useful to us, or we may adopt him as a son." They were unaware of what was to come. So we learn in other places in the Quran that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala made baby Musa very lovable, and he was, that whoever looked upon him, they loved him, and he was just adorable. And we also see here that it is important to give good suggestions, even if you think it may be ignored or not taken. Still do give it, right? She's giving this suggestion. Of course, they knew that this was probably a baby from amongst the Bani Israel, based on the direction that the basket was coming in from, and they knew the order that was out to kill the baby boys. So they knew that this was probably a baby of the Bani Israel. And Pharaoh, or maybe his soldiers or servants had said, you should kill this baby. But his wife, and this is Queen Asiya, she gave him the suggestion that don't kill him, let's keep him. And the heart of Musa's mother ached so much that she almost gave away his identity, had we not reassured her heart in order for her to have faith in Allah's promise. Musa alayhi salam's mother, obviously, she was very, very worried inside, very, frantic with worry. But Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave strength to her heart so that she would stay quiet. And He made her heart strengthened with firm faith. And faith in His promise that her child would be okay. And she said to his sister, "Keep track of him." So she watched him from a distance while they were unaware. So his sister followed along and saw where the basket went and what the people did with him. And we had caused him to refuse all wet nurses at first. So his sister suggested, "Shall I direct you to a family who will bring him up for you and take good care of him?" This is how we returned him to his mother, so that her heart would be put at ease and not grief, and that she would know that Allah's promise is always true. But most people do not know. And this is very important for us to also take heart from and be strengthened by, that most people don't know Allah's promise is true, so they don't have faith. But it is believing in Allah's promise that allows people to make sacrifices and to take bold steps. And we should also believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's promises that He has made to us to, support us and help us in the right way. Sometimes we have to let go of what we love. And so now we see that not only is her baby restored to her, but she's also paid to take care of her own child. Right? Allah does not close one door with His wisdom. This is a saying, that Allah does not close one door with His wisdom, except that He opens two with His mercy. Right? So when it seems to us that an opportunity is, is no longer there, an opportunity has ended, then be patient and expect the best from Allah, inshallah. And when he reached full strength and maturity, we gave him wisdom and knowledge. This is how we reward the good doers. So we see that Musa alayhi salam was given good judgment and knowledge, and he was righteous. Right? He was of the muhsinin. This is when he has reached the age of maturity. One day he entered the city unnoticed by its people. There he found two men fighting. one of his own people and the other of his enemies. The man from his people called to him for help against his foe. So Musa punched him, causing his death. Musa cried, "This is from Shaitan's handiwork. He is certainly a sworn, misleading enemy." So this was, an accidental murder. Excuse me. This was an accidental murder, and Musa alayhi salam immediately asked for forgiveness. As we see in the next ayah, that he pleaded, "My Lord, I have definitely wronged my soul, so forgive me." So he forgave him, for he is indeed the all-forgiving, most merciful. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala forgave him. And we should also remember that whenever we've made a mistake, we should immediately ask for forgiveness and promise to never do that again. Right? This is part of true repentance. Musa pledged, "My Lord, for all your favors upon me, I will never side with the wicked." So now Musa alayhi salam is making this pledge and this promise that from now on he will never help those who are oppressors or who are wicked. And so Musa became fearful, watching out in the city, when suddenly the one who sought his help the day before cried out to him again for help. So now this is the next day that the same person who was from among the Bani Israel, who had asked him to help the previous day, is calling him again for help. Now he's in a fight with someone else. Musa rebuked him, "Indeed, you are clearly a troublemaker." Then when Musa was about to lay his hands on their foe, the enemy said, "O Musa, do you intend to kill me as you killed a man yesterday? You only want to be a tyrant in the land. You do not intend to make peace." And the scholars say that this is actually the one who spoke out here is actually the man of the Bani Israel, and he mistakenly thought that maybe Musa alayhi salam was about to hit him instead of the other man. So he blurted this out, and in this way that wrong accidental murder that happened the previous day becomes known, and it becomes known to the authorities. And he's clearly wrong, right? But he just speaks out in haste like this. And there came a man rushing from the farthest end of the city. He said, "O Musa, the chiefs are actually conspiring against you to put you to death. So leave the city. I really advise you to do so." Meaning this is someone who's advising him that I'm your well-wisher, and there are consultations and talks going on to put you to death. So you should leave. And even though Musa alayhi salam was brought up in the palace, he was obviously an Israelite. And there were people who didn't like him, and they were just waiting for an excuse to get rid of him. So Musa left the city in a state of fear and caution, praying, "My Lord, deliver me from the wrongdoing people." And as he made his way towards Midian, he said, "I trust my Lord will guide me to the right way." Now we see throughout here that from the time of his coming to maturity until this point, we've seen now several instances where Musa alayhi salam is talking to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, right? He's keeping this connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's seeking forgiveness, he's showing gratefulness, he's asking for help. So he has this constant connection with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And here he's saying that when he's saying, "I trust my Lord will guide me to the right way," that's showing his hope and his belief that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will guide him to the road that is the best and that will take him to his goal. And he was headed for Midian because at that time that was the closest free and inhabited land, meaning the land that was nearest by, that was not under the authority of the Egyptians. But he had to keep safe along the way from the Egyptian police and the military posts along the way. So he needed that guidance for the best path and the route to take. When he arrived at the well of Midian, he found a group of people watering their herds. Apart from them, he noticed two women holding back their herd. He asked them, "What is the matter?" They replied, "We cannot water our animals until the other shepherds are done, for our father is a very old man." So, as when he arrives here, he notices something a little odd, right? That there are these ladies who are keeping their flocks back from the water, and he's asking why. And we realize that we see these women; they were so modest that they didn't want to water their flocks when the other shepherds were crowded around there with their flocks, right? So even though they had something good and important to do, they were holding back so that they could do it in a modest and appropriate way. And this is a lesson for us also, that when we're doing something good, we have to do it in the right way, not with you may have seen situations where women and men are kind of just pushing and shoving each other to get at something, even if it's something good, right? Like if you've seen situations in the haram at times of Umrah or Hajj, and that's unfortunate. So they are staying back until the other shepherds are gone, and their father is old, and he can't do this work. So what did Prophet Musa do? So he watered their herd for them, then withdrew to the shade and prayed, "My Lord, I am truly in desperate need of whatever provision you may have in store for me." So you see that he stepped forward to help them. They didn't ask him to help them, nor did he say to them, "Okay, I'll do this for you if you give me some compensation." Right? He just stepped in, helped them, and then he went to a shady place and made this dua. And again, we see that he's connecting with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He's calling on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that he is completely alone, and mentions how much he is in need. And this is a lesson for us as well, that this is how to invite Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy. We saw this earlier as well several times, like for example when we were talking about Prophet Zakariya's dua, right? That when we express how great our need is and how helpless we are, this invites Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's mercy. And in our duas, we should always be showing humility and showing dependency, how much we're in need. There's a hadith of the Prophet ﷺ where he said that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is merciful and generous. He feels shy that his servant should raise his hands before him, and that he should not put something good in them. He does not like to return our hands empty. And then we note also that Musa alayhi salam, he's very dignified, and he has dignity. He's not behaving in a way that some other men do. He did the work. He did whatever he could to help them, and then he went off. He didn't stick around to hang out with them, chat with them, ask them for something in return, or harass them in any way. And so this is real manliness, that just because you were able to help someone with something, it doesn't mean then that you have the right to hang around and now try to get something in return or to bother someone. So what happens then, we'll see. Then one of the two women came to him walking bashfully. So the word used here is ala istihya. Ala istihya. So with a great deal of haya. And what is haya? Right? Haya includes composure, includes grace, and it includes modesty. She didn't come across as weak or meek, and we should also remember that haya is not like a flirtatious kind of shyness, which is really flirtation and shyness and haya, they're all opposites, right? Sometimes we see in popular culture that someone is portrayed as being shy, but at the same time kind of flirtatious, and that is not right. She walked guarding her modesty, not provocatively. And another way to interpret ala istihya is that she came to him in spite of her modesty. Yani, she came because it was something that she had to do. Like there was an important thing that she had to do, so she came. Otherwise, she wouldn't have come to just talk to him for no reason. She said, "My father is inviting you, so he may reward you for watering our animals for us." When Musa came to him and told him his whole story, the old man said, "Have no fear. You are now safe from the wrongdoing people." So Oh, just one more important thing to mention also about haya is that it is said that haya and iman go together. So if one of the two leaves, then the other leaves as well. So that's very important for us to remember that haya is, a very important part of our iman. And so yes, we see that this is a good family that that Musa alayhi salam meets, and the father, he consoles Musa alayhi salam that you are now safe from those people. One of the two daughters suggested, "Oh, my dear father, hire him. A strong, trustworthy person is definitely the best to hire." So, she suggested hiring him, and we learn from this that strength and trustworthiness are two qualities that are very important to look at in a person when considering who to hire. That they have, this ability and that they're trustworthy. Sometimes when looking at who to hire, people will look at appearances or connections or, what else the person can offer, but these two qualities are important to look at and consider. So this is the suggestion she gives to her father, and he probably thinks about it before giving this proposal. That the old man proposed. Ayah 27. The old man proposed, "I wish to marry one of these two daughters of mine to you, provided that you stay in my service for 8 years. If you complete 10, it will be a favor from you, but I do not wish to make it difficult for you. Allah willing, you will find me an agreeable man." So, the daughter had just made this suggestion to hire him because, they did need someone to do their outside work. And the father has the wisdom, he realizes that he's not going to just hire a man when he also has two daughters in the house. And he gives this proposal that I wish to marry one of these two to you, but you need to stay here. You can't just get married and then leave. So you need to stay for at least 8 years, and 10 would be even better. And we see here that both of these, Musa alayhi salam was in need, and this family was in need, and they could each fulfill each other's needs in some way. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us with a healthy dependency among each other. We see, right, that I have some need or deficiency that someone else can help and assist me in, and they may have something that I can help them in. They may have some issue that I can help them in, and this is like for all of us, right? So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created us in this way so that we can live together and complement each other. So he said, "Allah willing, you will find me an agreeable man." And what did Musa alayhi salam respond with? Musa responded, "Then it is settled between you and I. Whichever term I fulfill, there will be no further obligation on me, and Allah is a witness to what we say." So now we see how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's plan is working out, right? That he has, he intends to save the Bani Israel through Musa alayhi salam. And here we see Musa alayhi salam now has a job, a family, a home, a wife, everything is totally settled. And, he put his trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He didn't, just sit down and pity himself. And we also see that when he was able to help someone, he did. He wasn't just sitting saying, "Oh, poor me, I'm nothing, I don't have anything, I can't do anything." So when he was able to help someone, he did, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala helped him. So this is a lesson for us, that when we are in difficulty, we have to put our faith and trust in Allah. We shouldn't wallow in self-pity, and see what good we're capable of doing, right? We don't know how, if we help others, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala may also help us, right? So we should not be stingy or selfish, but be good to others, be merciful to them, and we know that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will show mercy to the one who shows mercy to others. It is a hadith of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam that whoever removes a worldly grief from a believer, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala will remove from him one of the griefs of the Day of Judgment. And whoever alleviates the need of a needy person, Allah will alleviate his needs in this world and in the hereafter. Like, this is strong encouragement for us to try to be as much as possible helpful to each other and help each other out in what we can do and what we have the ability to do. Now we move on. Ayah 29. When Musa had completed the term, and he had stayed the full 10 years, when he had completed the term and was traveling with his family, he spotted a fire on the side of Mount Tur. He said to his family, "Stay here, for I have spotted a fire. Perhaps from there I can bring you some directions or a torch from the fire so you may warm yourselves." And this incident has been mentioned several times in previous surahs as well. And we see that Musa alayhi salam was very caring for his family. He doesn't just sit back and let them do all the work. And this is also a sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam. But when he came to it, he was called from the bush in the sacred ground to the right side of the valley. "O Musa, it is truly I am Allah, the Lord of all the worlds." "Now throw down your staff." But when he saw it slithering like a snake, he ran away without looking back. Allah reassured him, "O Musa, draw near and have no fear. You are perfectly secure. Now put your hand through the opening of your collar. It will come out shining, white, unblemished. And cross your arms tightly to calm your fears. These are two proofs from your Lord to Fir'aun and his chiefs. They have truly been a rebellious people." And, crossing your arms tightly, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it's also mentioned that he was told to hold his arm to his side, and this would help to calm his heart and calm his fears. Ayah 33. Musa appealed, "My Lord, I have indeed killed a man from them, so I fear they may kill me. And my brother Harun is more eloquent than I, so send him with me as a helper to support what I say, for I truly fear that they may reject me." Ayah 35. Allah responded, "We will assist you with your brother and grant you both authority so they cannot harm you. With our signs, you and those who follow you will certainly prevail." So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala promises them with protection. And of course they may have felt very naturally, fear and anxiety going up against Fir'aun and all his might, and how they would do this, but Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is giving them the assurance that they will not be harmed. But when Musa came to them with our clear signs, they said arrogantly, "This is nothing but conjured magic tricks. We've never heard of this in the history of our forefathers." Musa responded, "My Lord knows best who has come with true guidance from him and will fare best in the end. Indeed, the wrongdoers will never succeed." Pharaoh declared, "O chiefs, I know of no other God for you but myself. So bake bricks out of clay for me, O Haman, and build a high tower, so I may look at the God of Musa, although I am sure he is a liar." So, here Pharaoh is speaking very mockingly and making fun of Musa alayhi salam. And so he and his soldiers behaved arrogantly in the land with no right, thinking they would never be returned to us. So we seized him and his soldiers, casting them into the sea. See then what was the end of the wrongdoers. We made them leaders, inviting others to the fire, and on the day of judgment they will not be helped. We caused a curse to follow them in this world, and on the day of judgment they will be among the outcasts. So, clearly a lesson for us not to follow people blindly, and see how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala brought Fir'aun down. Despite all his power and might and his arrogance, he was brought down completely, him and all his advisors and soldiers and great people. Indeed, we gave Musa the scripture after destroying earlier nations as an insight for the people, a guide, and mercy, so perhaps they would be mindful. You were not there, O Prophet, on the western side of the mountain when we entrusted the commandments to Musa, nor were you present in his time. But we later raised several generations, and the ages took their toll on them. Nor were you living among the people of Midian, rehearsing our revelations with them. But it is we who have sent this revelation to you. And you are not at the side of Mount Tur when we called out to Musa. But you have been sent as a mercy from your Lord to warn a people to whom no warner has come before you, so perhaps they may be mindful. And also so they would not say, if struck by an affliction for what their hands have done, O our Lord, if only you had sent us a messenger, we would have followed your revelations and become believers. So again, we see here Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mentioning and pointing out that Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, of course, he was not present at any of these times, in the time of Prophet Musa, or to have seen any of these things. He didn't have former knowledge of these things. And there were critics even now who will say that, the Quran has been written by Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or that he had, someone who told him these things. But the critics of his own time, who were, had much more at stake in trying to prove him wrong, they even could not make such a claim, because they knew fully well Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam had, been born and raised right in front of them. They knew his entire life. They knew that he did not have access to, great books and histories and encyclopedias of knowledge about former people, that he could not have said any of these things on his own, from his own knowledge or from help by anyone. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is saying again and again that you were not there when this and this and this happened. We are telling this to you. And again, as we mentioned earlier, right, that he's been sent as a warner to people so that they don't later have that excuse to say, oh Allah, if only you had sent us a warner, if only you had sent us a messenger, we would have followed your revelations, we would have believed. So there's no excuse left for them to not believe, except, whatever they do now is due to their own stubborn obstinacy and their own ignorance, and just sticking to that. And of course, we also know that some of these so-called objections that the mushrikeen of Makkah and the chiefs of the Quraysh were coming up with against Rasulullah, they weren't really. They knew that those objections weren't actually true. Their only real object was that they didn't want to lose. They feared losing their power and their status if Mecca became, no longer that center of shirk that it was at that time, because that's what they derived much of their power and influence from, that they were able to be the hosts of the Kaaba. So they were afraid of losing that, actually. And so we will end here today, inshallah, and we will continue with the second half of Surah Al-Qasas tomorrow, and inshallah also do Surah Al-Ankabut, and then that will complete just 20, inshallah. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Wal asr, innal insana lafi khusr, illa alladhina amanu wa amilu salihat wa tawasaw bil haqqi wa tawasaw bis sabr. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.